Hello, BookTube, and greetings from a gray, drizzly day here in Boston. I believe it is cool enough outside so that if the precipitation would actually come in force, it would be sleet or snow instead of rain, but it's not coming in force. I don't know if that's going to happen tonight or maybe tomorrow, but not so far. Still miserable for taking the tiny little bean. The tiny little bean does not want to go outside when it's even hinting at this kind of weather. She's grown less tolerant of that with the years. uh, but I have a mail haul for you here. A couple of packages from yesterday's mail that I didn't do yesterday because yesterday was an irritating day. As you could probably tell, because I only made one video. Yesterday was an irritating day. I actually made two videos. I made a video directly addressing the irritations and then thought, nobody wants that in their queue. Nobody wants to get trapped in watching that. I think I'm calmer now about all three of the things that were irritating me yesterday. Of course, it was nothing serious. But you know how little things that happen to you throughout the day can just get under your skin. They can just bug you. And that happened to me at periodic intervals throughout the day yesterday. Starting at first thing in the morning. Once I'd got the bean back inside, and she's not a puppy anymore. She's 7. Or going on 7. So she has developed a liking for sleeping after the morning festivities. After the morning show is over, we get up, we enthuse to see each other, we play, we go outside, we walk around, she screams at people to pet her. And we come in and we eat a little. And when all of that's done, when all of that was done for years and years, that was when she was ready for an even longer walk. Now she mainly wants to go to bed and sleep for a while after that. So once she was settled, I gave in to a yearning of mine. I had a craving for Dunkin' Donuts. Those of you who aren't familiar with New England especially, but America maybe in general, Dunkin' Donuts is a kind of a fast food place. It's not, I don't think a lot of people would automatically think of it that way, but you won't wait for your food. And there is hot cooked food that you can get there. It's a donut shop. It started out that way. It's a donut shop, donuts and coffee. And again, those of you who might not be familiar with America, a donut is a ring of fried lard with sugar on it. It's just about the most awful thing you can eat, but they are so good. And Dunkin' Donuts is synonymous with New England, at least southern New England. Certainly Boston, certainly Massachusetts. You cannot go anywhere without being near a Dunkin' Donuts in Massachusetts, especially in Boston. I have lived in many different locales in Boston over many, many different decades, and I have never lived more than 30 seconds away from a Dunkin' Donuts. And I live 30 seconds away from one right now, but I don't often go there. It's become really expensive. It's the home of what is widely regarded as the worst coffee that is commercially available anywhere. Every time I have a guest over who's not all that familiar with Dunkin' Donuts, but who is a coffee addict, I will always tell them, well, you're going to want your morning coffee. I'm really curious to know if you think Dunkin' Donuts is as bad as everybody says it is. Feel free, it's just 30 seconds away. Feel free to walk over there for your coffee. They all report the same thing. This is pretty awful. This is pretty terrible. But it used to be that I went there more frequently because it wasn't expensive. I could go to Dunkin' Donuts for a hot bagel, or my favorite thing, the hash browns, and it would be a trivial amount of money. It's not anymore. It's not anymore. So, that's, considering that the food's not good or good for you, that was pretty much all it had going for it. But every once in a while, I get a craving for something from Dunkin' Donuts. And yesterday morning, the craving was for yesterday morning, the craving was for blueberry muffins. That's all. I thought I've settled the bean down. She won't miss me if I'm only gone for a minute or two. I will go over and I'll get 2 blueberry muffins from Dunkin' Donuts. So I walked over, across the parking lot, and went in. There were 2 people in front of me, so I just waited, and in a minute, in no time at all, I was at the register. And the young man behind the register, I walked right up to the counter. I was right there at his register. He was looking at the screen of his register. And I thought, okay, he's just finishing something up. And he looked at the screen of his register for 30 seconds. Now, in your mind, you're going to think that's an incredibly small amount of time. Picture that happening in line at a fast food place in complete silence. Just sit it out on the clock. It's actually not an incredibly short amount of time. It's an eternity. It's an absolute eternity. And he wasn't done. I was standing there. After 30 seconds, I'm thinking, all right, after 10 seconds, I was thinking, all right, he's got to be done. So I don't know what's going on here. Maybe he's not feeling well or something like that. After 30 seconds, I had an idea of what was going on, and I would be hanged if I would say anything. So it went on for another 30 seconds, a full minute of silence in this whole place. The person in line and the person at the register, and complete immobile silence. And then it went on for another minute. This is, those of you who maybe aren't familiar with the world of food service, that is an alternate dimension. That simply does not happen. And it did. 2 full minutes of complete silence. By this point, everyone knew what was happening. There was nothing happening. Everyone noticed that, including the woman behind the counter that I can only assume was his manager. Because she wasn't doing anything. That's how you pick out managers. After 2 minutes, I knew exactly what was happening, and I didn't want to wait there all day, and I also didn't want to not say anything, because what was happening was 8 different kinds of wrong. But I decided to stick with the real world, the quotidian, and the factual. So I said, in a conversational voice, I said, when you got this job, you were trained what to do. You were trained that when a customer walks up to the register, you make eye contact and you say, can I help you? What can I get for you? What would you like? Some variation on that to solicit their business. You make eye contact and you ask them what they want. When you took this job, you were trained to do that, and you are not doing that right now. And he looked up. I think he looked about here. He never actually did make eye contact, and said, "Heppe." Incredibly fast and incredibly slow. Incredibly fast and incredibly low in his voice. I know that what that was supposed to be was, can I help you? Heppe. And I said, I wasn't looking for the victory at Waterloo, so I said, yes, I'd like 2 blueberry muffins. And he turned around and he put the blueberry muffins in a bag, and he turned back to me, he handed me the bag, and he started to enter them on his screen. And I stopped him and said, the only other thing that you were trained to do when you trained for this job, which had to have been no more than 2 weeks ago, the only other thing you were trained to do was at this moment to ask me if I want anything else. You might notice that I'm in the incredibly small percentage of Dunkin' Donuts customers who has not ordered a beverage of any kind. Is that an oversight? You were trained to ask, can I get you anything else? Will there be anything else? Anything else that you want? Would you like a drink? Maybe some coffee? Any variation on that. I'm not guessing. You were trained to do both of those things, and you aren't doing either one of them right now. And he said, again, looking about here, can I get anything else? And I said, no, that's okay. Thanks. And he gave me my change, and I walked away. And I shouldn't have thought about it. I shouldn't have thought about it at all. That whole time, the whole time that was going on, the 2 minutes of silence, that might as well be 2 hours when you're talking about in retail or food service of any kind. That is unthinkable. 2 full minutes of silence. And then the customer telling the employee how to do his job not once but twice on the very basics. You greet the customer and you ask the follow-up. At Dunkin' Donuts, that is trained into everyone on day one. They go through simulations. They are told that there will be anonymous shoppers coming in to test them on it. His manager was standing right there in complete silence. Now, after 2 minutes, I don't know. Maybe she just didn't care or was zoned out or whatever. Once the customer is telling the employee that they're doing a bad job, the manager has to come in. The manager was standing 10 feet away. She had to step in at that point, either to defend the employee or to apologize to the customer. She didn't do either one. She just stood there in silence the whole time. And I walked out, and I told myself, just don't let it bother you. Just put it right out of your mind. But I couldn't get it out of my mind because I know exactly what explains it. There's only one possible explanation for what I saw yesterday morning, and that explanation is racism. And I wouldn't need to explain that to your grandmother who is black. because she would already have gone through that at the very earliest equivalent of Dunkin' Donuts or maybe a McDonald's or something like that, where she is not seen, not addressed, and then shoot on her way. And the only reason she's not treated worse than that is because it's illegal to put a sign in the window saying no whites, no blacks, no nothing, no Chinese. It's illegal to do that. That little building would be sued out of existence if it did that, and everybody knows that. But your grandmother would know. Some of your grandmothers would know what that feels like. My own grandmother would know what that feels like. No Irish. There's only one thing that explains that behavior, and that's it. Racism, bigotry explains that. Which is why the register person had no problem with the two people in front of me who didn't have my skin color. And it's also why his manager didn't say anything, because she's on his side. She can't come in to criticize him because that lets the side down, but she can't second me either because racism. That knowing that was true bothered me. It bothered me more than it should, because 10 years ago that wouldn't have happened. Before this incredibly polarized social media driven mind frame that has infected this entire world, 10 years ago that would not have happened. Now it's normal. And it bothered me. I just kept thinking about it. Even I kept telling myself that I shouldn't think about it. And I got back and I ate the blueberry muffins, but they weren't good. I don't know if that's because they've changed their recipe or because they couldn't have tasted good after that or whatnot. And I went about my morning. I did emails and I wrote something, and I waited for Frida to wake up, and then we went on a walk. I thought, all right, the walk will put you on your feet. The walk will set you right up. It'll get that right out of your system. And we were walking up in the neighborhood, up in the quiet suburban side streets that take us far away from the traffic that you can hear, and that are really pleasant. You don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to worry about traffic, for instance, or not that I have to worry about that with Frida anyway, but I developed this habit with my girls, and you don't have to worry about anything. It's just pleasant and lovely. You can wind your way around and curlicue and get lost and then find your way again. It's wonderful. And it was warm enough yesterday so that was entirely possible. So we were walking along, and at one point she decided that she had to poop. And this is TMI, I know, but you could just skip this and just fast forward ahead to when you see me handling packages. I just had to get this off my chest here. She decided to poop. I have never needed to train Frida at anything. I didn't need to train her to that housebreaking meant you go to the bathroom outside. I didn't need to do that. The minute she had the ability to control herself and knew what the outside was, she made that decision on her own. Never needed to train her with a leash or a harness. Never needed to do that at all. No pulling on the leash, no grabbing the leash and playing a game with it, no shrinking away from the harness or anything like that. And I also didn't train her to curb herself, but she does. We're on the sidewalk and she needs to poop. She hops down into the gutter. I don't know what that is. Maybe she just doesn't like to poop on level ground where she is. Maybe she likes a little bit of contrast. But she did that. She hopped down into the gutter. I think that it's legal in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for you to leave dog poop in the gutter. You can't leave it on the sidewalk, but it doesn't matter. I have my plastic bag right there. It was all ready. I was waiting for her to finish. I wait for her to finish. I examined the poop a little from a bird's eye view. I examined the poop a little just to see that it's okay. There's no trouble with it. And she examines it because she thinks it's apparently as interesting as the mystery of the ages. And then she hopped back up on the sidewalk, and I bent over to bag her poop. And while I was bagging her poop, I heard a woman say, "You better be getting all of that." And for a fraction of a second, I thought, she can't be talking to me. She must be, it's an empty suburban street, but she can't be speaking to me. And then another fraction of a second, I realized, no, she's speaking to you, but you should ignore it. Just don't say anything. She's seeing you pick this up, so you don't have anything to explain or to justify. And then another second passed, and I said, no. And I stood up and looked, and across the street and up about 60 feet, a woman on the other side of the street was indeed looking at me and had indeed yelled at me, "You better be getting all of that." I took Frida's leash and looped it around the top of a pole on the other side of the sidewalk, crossed the street, walked over to her, stopped 5 feet away from her, and said, "I am another adult, and I'm a stranger to you. Don't yell at me in public." And she was burbling on. People, you know, I just people within this neighborhood. They always leave their stuff. They never. I didn't care. I said, I'm another adult. I'm a total stranger to you. Don't yell at me in public. And I waited a minute. I didn't care what she was saying. And I said, listen carefully. Don't do that again to me. Do you understand me? And she paused by this point and said, I didn't mean anything to you. I stopped her and I said, no, I need you to say it out loud. Do you understand me? Don't ever do that again to me. Do you understand? And she said, yeah. And I said, good. She was burbling by that point, but I turned on, I said, good, and I walked back to Frida, unleashed her, and we continued on our walk. And again, I told myself, you should ignore it. It's just an obnoxious person, that's all. But again, I could not help but link it to the 21st century. I do not believe that in the latter half of the 20th century, she would have done that. We have been coarsened and trained and trigger reflexed by social media to think that we should pop off in the rudest possible way to anyone at any time for any even wrongly perceived provocation. And that is, I knew this already, but for some reason it got under my skin. It had help. The ground was laid earlier in the morning, but still, it bugged me. It just bugged me. Those two things worked together. And then I came back and I settled the bean again, and I did some more emails, and I did some more stuff here, and I started something else to write. And then I thought, you know, BookTube always picks me up when I'm feeling kvetchy about other humans. BookTube always picks me up. So I looked at BookTube. I looked all around my subscriptions, all around adjacent channels and whatnot, any videos that I missed recently. And believe it or not, I found something else to bother me. Because there are a couple of tags going around that look lots of fun, and I have not been tagged in them. I know we're getting pettier and pettier as we go along, but nevertheless, like everybody else, I joined BookTube for the community. And yet, like I've mentioned on this channel, I am pretty unpopular with other BookTubers for, as far as I'm concerned, little or no discernible reason. There are people who like I mentioned, there are people who've created their whole channel in order to say he's not so great. There are people who have ongoing presentations, regular shows on their channel, whose sole purpose now is to exclude me. And also, the people who are involved in the tags that I was looking at are people that I am friendly with. They would never have me on a live stream. They would never have me as a guest on their channel. They don't mention me on their channel, and they don't tag me. When they're in the middle of talking about the wonderful community that we have on BookTube, they summarily ignore my existence. And I've said, this is really petty, I know, but we'll get to the mail in just a second. I'm venting here. I've said that I know that shouldn't matter. I have made friends with other BookTubers. It's not like it's 100%. And also, the reason I'm here is you, not other BookTubers. The reason I'm here is all the people that I'm interacting with in Voxer and email and in the comment sections of these videos. It nevertheless bugged me. Again, it probably had an easy head start bugging me because of all the other things that had bugged me during the day. But those three things just conspired to just... I'm sure you know what it feels like. Someday the day is just going to win, and you just have to retreat. You just have to give in and retreat. And I did. I gave in and retreated into reading. So that's the story of why I've only made one video today. I'm going to mark this video that the video starts at the 19-minute mark. Okay, so now we'll do the mail. One of the things I noticed from the mail was a solicitation from Wooden Boat magazine. So they must be joining the long list of people who are finding it harder and harder to discern a difference between me and Mark Richardson, because they now want me to subscribe, and I probably will. Like Mark, I've spent a lot of time in wooden boats and in non-wooden boats. Then I got the New Yorker with a Roz Chast cover. It doesn't take 2 seconds to know what the title of this picture is. You are correct. It is Bird Bath. It is a New York City pigeon having a bubble bath, which is great. That is a cause for a smile. But I was going to smile at this issue regardless of who did the cover. And those of you who subscribe to the New Yorker will know exactly why. Jill Lepore, a great American historian whose work I've praised in print and in private many, many times, has a long article here on William Howard Taft, specifically William Howard Taft on the Supreme Court. It's a review that I never thought I would see of. There's a guy named Post who's doing an official history of the Taft Court, and he has now finished that in, I think, 2 volumes. I'm still working my way through volume 2. It's incredibly dense, but incredibly good. It's also incredibly long. It's like 3,000 pages long. No joke, no exaggeration. It's like, the thing is, the 2 of them together are like 3,000 pages long. It's the final word on the Taft Court. It is, I think, Cambridge University Press. It is certainly not for the public. It will certainly not be in bookstores. Not a chance in the world. It's enormously expensive. It's physically enormous. The New Yorker must have got a copy, and it must have struck Lepore as being of interest to, what is this? It must have. That must have been it. I don't know if she is totally remote at the New Yorker, or does she ever go into the newsrooms, but I can't imagine her asking for this thing from the publisher and getting it. It had to have been that they just sent a copy of this gigantic cinder block to the New Yorker, and she might have seen it there, or somebody might have seen it there and thought, it is. I'm sure that it went to the Post. I'm sure that it went to the Wall Street Journal. I'm sure that it went to the New York Times. But you look at it, it is the most unlikely fodder for her review that you could imagine. And she writes a long article about it, and it's really good. It's mostly, as the things happen in the New Yorker, it's mostly about the subject rather than about the book. It's mostly about Taft and the Taft Court. And Oliver Wendell Holmes gets a great few mentions as well. And it ends with a quote from a thing that I quoted in full. I wrote a short story called Wyoming Avenue about the death of President Taft. And in that story, this was 30 years ago, I include it. One of the things that comes up a couple of times in that story is the farewell letter that Oliver Wendell Holmes wrote to Chief Justice Taft at the end of Taft's life. He wrote it on behalf of everybody else on the Taft Court, and it is one of the most moving things that Holmes ever wrote. Holmes wasn't given to sentiment, except about the war between the states, but other than that, no. And it's an incredibly moving thing. It's an incredibly moving letter. Lepore ends her piece rather jarringly by saying that Taft almost certainly never read it. I don't know that I agree with that, but it was a lovely grace note to end. It was just a lovely piece. It's just a lovely piece. Since the New Yorker now has become a breeding ground for the agendas of the authors, I can't help but think that maybe this means that Lepore is working on a book about Taft. That would be great if that were true. That would certainly explain why these 2 cinder block volumes of legal history might attract her eye, or might attract the eye of someone who knows what she's doing. Just a guess on my part, but of course that is the highlight of the New Yorker so far for me. I would really like a print copy of Post's book on the Taft Court. That would be awesome, but I don't know. I mean, that's 3,000 pages. That's a brick to put in a box and mail to Boston. I'm not sure that Cambridge University Press would do it. But anyway, that is the mail of the periodicals, and now we have the books. I want to show you a couple of books from yesterday that I didn't do. I filmed it, but then I deleted the video. Ironically enough, since I ended up venting about the things that were bothering me anyway. But I will put a timestamp here so that you know 19 minutes is when to start. The first thing that I want to show you that I opened already, we will open packages, but the first thing I want to show you is translated literature. This is Zhang Lin's novel Aftershock, which I learned in the pub sheet was originally a short thing, a screenplay for a very well-regarded Chinese movie, their first IMAX release, and then also was expanded into a book that has been a hit in China for years and years and years. I don't think I have any viewers in China, so I don't think I have anybody to ask me. I don't think I have anybody to ask, is that true? I'm sure that it is true. And now we have an English language translation by Shelley Bryant. This is for the Amazon Crossings imprint. Amazon does a whole bunch of publishing, an enormous amount of publishing. And one of the things they do, one of their imprints, is the Crossings imprint, which is translated literature. I wish that imprint were a lot more ambitious than it is, but I'm very glad that it exists. And this is, as you can tell from the cover, this is about an earthquake. and the after effects. This is the finished copy, basically. This is the $17 paperback that will be in the bookstore in a week. Let's see here. In the summer of 1976, an earthquake swallows up the city of Tangshan, China. Among the hundreds of thousands of people scrambling for survival is a mother who makes an agonizing decision that irrevocably changes her life and the lives of her children. In that devastating split second, her 7-year-old daughter is separated from her brother and the mother she loves and trusts. All she remembers of that fateful morning is betrayal, and then the novel follows her later in life. One of millions of stories that could be told, I would imagine. The thing that I want to know now, it's not necessary for me to care about this book. I'll put this book on the list this weekend probably. The thing that I want to know though is, was the author trapped in an earthquake? Is this born of autofiction? Then the other book that I want to show you from yesterday is from May. It's a May release, so unlike Aftershock, I don't have to worry about this one right away. This is by Carl Elliott, and it's called The Occasional Human Sacrifice: Medical Experimentation and the Price of Saying No. And the author is a bioethicist at the University of Minnesota who is trained in medicine as well as philosophy. And this book is about, are you going to tell me? Beginning with the public health worker who exposed the Tuskegee syphilis study, and ending with the 4 surgeons who blew the whistle in 2016 on lethal synthetic trachea transplants, the author tells the story of insiders who spoke out against the abuses of the medical experimentation industry and often paid a terrible price for doing the right thing. He talks to 6 of these people, I think. 6. Yeah, he talks to 6 whistleblowers. Of course, the industry is clam tight against him. They're not going to talk about any of this sort of stuff. But it's all about the kind of stories that make brushfire news in the headlines and then go away. He digs in to 6 of those stories. So I thought you might want to know about that from May. Some of you will be very interested in this, I know. And now we will open packages. Steve having vented, we will open packages and see if any of these packages can really put a smile on my face. Of course, they don't want to come quietly. They don't want to open rightly. You can go all the way back 8 years on this channel and you will find packages failing. But let's see. Here, let's put all this stuff aside. What is this first one? Oh, okay. Great. Let's see here. All I have is an invoice, so I don't have any information on when this comes out or whatnot, but this is by Josh Bell. I have to assume that's not my Josh Bell. I have to assume that's not the great violinist. This is called The Houseboat Veronica. An antique scuba equipment on the cover there. A mythopoetic journey to the edge of the world and to the edges of reason. The mysterious houseboat Veronica motors across a post-apocalyptic freshwater lake crewed by a black-haired witch and her young male ward. They explore an unfolding world of shape-shifting moons, vampire moths, and the submerged witch cemeteries, a world where voluntary imprisonment holds its own appeal and the heart yearns for the delicate dance between blood and power, beauty and terror. Neither a pirate nor a mere witch, she is an artist, a master of water and time, who shapes reality with her baffling powers. This lyrical and compelling novel beckons readers to explore the enigmatic depths of its prose, inviting them to traverse the waters of wonder and bewilderment. Okay, I was less and less interested as that summary went on. I'm kind of interested in the dystopian world here, but that is okay. Let me tell you. Please tell me that you are not the violinist. No, all right. Josh Bell teaches at Harvard and is a recipient of an NEA grant, and is the author of 2 poetry collections, Alamo Theory and No Planets Strike. So does that mean this is his debut novel? Okay, well, there you go. The Houseboat Veronica. Great, fantastic. All right, let's move on to this next one here. No date on The Houseboat Veronica. It could be that it's out already. I will check and analyze it, prioritize it accordingly. we're getting close to the end of the month, as unbelievable as that is. We're getting closer and closer to February, and I am looking at my shelves, my topmost work shelf of galley copies and finished copies, and it was, of course, woolly chaos over there, because I just pile things on. When I get them, I pile things on. I think, you'll deal with it later. I'll deal with it later. And in very later never comes. Later is always the turn of every month when it has to make sense. So I'll have to deal with that, and all these things will have to go there. So what is this next one? Lots of paperwork. New paperwork? What do we got here? Okay, this is February 20th. This is another February release. Okay, great. This is a finished copy of a book by Amanda Jayatissa called Island Witch. What have we got here? Inspired by the Sri Lankan folklore she heard whispered in the night as a child, award-winning author Amanda Jayatissa brings us Island Witch, a bone-chilling thriller perfect for fans of feminist myth retellings. That would not be me. And historical supernatural suspense like The Hacienda. I like historical supernatural suspense. I didn't particularly like The Hacienda. This Gothic tinged story takes us to 19th century Sri Lanka, where the daughter of a traditional demon priest, relentlessly bullied by peers and accused of witchcraft herself, tries to solve the mysterious attacks that have been terrorizing her coastal village. Okay, she's the daughter of a traditional demon priest, but there are no demons. There's no such thing as that. If this is a reality optional book, I'd like it if it told me that right away. Lush, otherworldly, and recalling horror classics like Carrie and The Exorcist, The Island Witch is a deliciously creepy and darkly feminist tale about the horrors of moral panic, the violent space between girlhood and adulthood, and what happens when female rage is finally unleashed. Okay, well, as the current phrase goes, that is loaded with red flags. But I mean, there's a murder. It sounds like this author is going to believe in the four humors and demons and demonic possession and whatnot. Those things aren't true. But the 21st century is just lining up to choose your own reality. Just make up whatever you want and believe it, and then go into the emergency room and make the doctor rule that out. Make him write it down on your charge sheet that he checked for demonic possession. And if he tells you, I'm not going to do that, there's no such thing as demonic possession, sue him. And since he knows that, he will do that. He will check it off. He will write it down on the forms, probably come pre-printed with it now. The choose your own reality virus that has infected the 21st century is definitely part of the medical community now. Definitely. As is evidenced by the number of people that I know who have gone in for a doctor's appointment at a place they don't know or at a new clinic in a new town. They walk in the door, and the first thing, once the doctor comes in, 25 minutes late, of course, for an appointment that's been on the books for 3 weeks, once the doctor comes in, the very first thing they say is, are you male or female? All the appointments are hard to get, and all of the friends that have had that happen to them have not done what they should have done, which is to get up and walk out, obviously. If you're a 50-year-old man and a doctor walks into the room and says, are you male or female? How are you going to trust anything that doctor says that goes any deeper than that? That means the doctor isn't even connected with reality, much less with their medical degree. But that has become common. And so that'll be one element that I'll be looking for in this book. Of course, the other element will be, there's a murder, and there might be a demonic element involved, but behind it all, what happens when a woman's rage is finally unleashed? Is it because of me? On page 270, am I mentioned by name? or on page 270 is the big reveal that all white men are the real evil here? That, sure, murderers are bad, but you really want evil, then take 60% of my readership. I don't know. This could avoid all of those things. I didn't really recognize the name. The author is the author of My Sweet Girl, a thriller called My Sweet Girl. Do any of you know that book? I can't remember if we ever hauled it on this channel, and I don't remember that I've ever read it. And she grew up in Sri Lanka, and currently lives in Portugal with her husband and 2 spoiled huskies. Spoiled huskies are the best huskies. Wonderful. All right, well, We shall see. I'm not gonna get my hackles up over this thing until I know what it is. If it's just feminist agitprop of the fourth, in other words, demented wave of feminism, then it's gonna have no interest for me. And any review that I wrote of it would be cause for legal action anyway, unless I just praise it. This is beyond great. Is there a word beyond great? Oh my God, I need this in my life right now. Oh my God, I'm living these vibes, etc., etc. I'm not going to cheerlead the thing, then I'm not allowed to review it. If it's like that, I will read it and see. I don't have a date on it, but it's a finished copy, so I'm assuming it's soon, probably next Tuesday. Uh, so I'll put it on the pile for tonight. And then we'll do the last package here, but keep in mind, I will note in the video's title that you can start at minute 19. I'm just ranting to get those things, to get the rotten day off my mind. This last one is not coming quietly. The package has not been coming quietly. I don't know why that is. One person suggested that it's not the packages, that it's me. But I fail to believe that my grip would be failing me at age 28. Oh. Okay. All right. Okay. Steve feels all better. Steve feels all better. Oh. Okay. This comes out on the 23rd, so this is late getting to me. This is already in your bookstores if you're lucky enough to have one. This is mass market paperback. It's a romance. It's by Anna Bennett, who I love. I've never read a book by her I didn't like. And this is called It Takes a Rake. Can we give a big collective sigh? No autofiction. No translated autofiction that I'm not allowed to pounce on. No, take boss girl or take charge girl boss who don't need no man who's the key to everything that I'm not allowed to criticize. No, nothing like that. Instead, it's a romance novel. Let's look at that. Look at that cover. This is the third book in Anna Bennett's Rogues to Lovers series. I could swear that I read one of those. Was it One Duke Down? What are you going to tell me what's in this series? Well, okay, One Duke Down. Oh, and Girls Before Earls. I'm pretty sure that I've read this series, the whole of it. But it doesn't matter with Anna Bennett. You can read it in any order. Let's see what we have here. She's about to face her biggest challenge yet. Since she was a girl, Miss Kitty Beckett has been adept at finding trouble, sneaking brandy, running away, and getting under the skin of the boy who, like her, was an apprentice to an architect. Now Kitty's a talented heiress who can take a dry building plan and breathe life into it with her pencils and paints. Also, she can spot a rake at 100 yards, and she won't be tricked or charmed into marriage, certainly not by a man who might interfere with her dreams. When Belhaven Bay announces its first ever architectural design contest, she vows to win, with a little help from her childhood rival. Leo Lachlan, a hard-working architect with a gift for numbers, has returned home after a few years in London, and he has secrets. The biggest? He's in love with Kitty, and has been since they were both apprentices. She refuses to give her heart to any man, but Leo's determined to beat the odds, even if it means learning how to be a rake. Fortunately, Kitty's willing to tutor him in the nuances of fashion, flirtation, and seduction in exchange for his help with the contest. But the whole plan would fall apart if she knew how he felt, so he'll have to be very convincing. So this, I don't really need to worry about this pub sheet because this is out already. This is in your bookstores now, but this just moved to the front of the line for today's reading. I'm not even going to wait until tonight. I'm going to read this today. Oh, man. All right. So there you go. That was the mail. Hardcover, translated fiction, medical malpractice, something a little weird. The houseboat Veronica could be fairly weird. Might also be, I shouldn't say also, because I don't know what Island Witch is. There's a chance that the houseboat Veronica and Island Witch are both vengeful misandry, in which case they're going to be kind of boring to read. But there's also a chance that they aren't that. And then something that definitely won't be that. It Takes a Rake. So not bad as a mail haul goes. And of course, Jill Lepore writing about William Howard Taft. So look at that. I ended this video all happy and smiling. There you go. So I will wrap this up and I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.